This is the Humble Togs podcast, where photographers of all experience levels share their journey and not just the highlight reel. I'm Kurt Snedden, a photographer and mentor with over 2 decades behind the camera. I'm here to create a space where photographers lift each other up, learn together, and no one's going to be a dick to you. If you're a humble tog, then stick around. If you're a photo bro who loves being a jerk to other photographers, you can keep on scrolling, my friend. Let's get into it. This is episode 4. This was actually originally drafted for episode 2, but I had some technical difficulties with the sound. There's a couple of things, and I did decide to keep the episode. There's a part halfway through here where I'll jump in and say, hey, from this point on, the microphone just suddenly decided to not be working. But this episode is definitely worth a listen. This episode is about something that most photographers won't admit out loud, especially if you're starting. And as I'm talking to new photographers coming into the Humble Togs Club, a lot of members jump in there and say, I stopped posting my work online altogether because of the fear of other photographers being jerks to them, commenting on photos when they didn't ask for advice. Oh, you haven't done this right. Oh, you haven't done that right. Why didn't you do this? Your horizon isn't straight. You shouldn't cut the arms off at the limbs. All this absolute bull crap that has nothing to do with your creativeness and your ability to choose to do what the hell you want in photography. Sure, there are technical things that you can get better at. And that is something that I help in the club, and that's also really valuable discussion. But if people are coming at you and giving you attitude and advice that you didn't ask for, the worst thing that can happen is that you stop posting and stop trying to put yourself out there, and then the bullies win, right? These guys are jerks, they're keyboard warriors, they're coming from their own insecurity, their own ego, and they can really do damage to young photographers or emerging photographers who are just trying to get started in the business. Today we talked to Kate. She has had some of that fear, but also has been around long enough to know that making a fool of herself and being a bit of an idiot like I am often on a podcast or on a mentorship call is all fun and games, and it helps people see us and see everyone as equals and not feel like, well, there's someone at the top of the class who's lecturing and he knows all the right answers, and I'll just sit here in my humble place and just be taught. I do want to say something about the word humble. This has also come up recently where people said to me online, humble photography won't get you very far. And it's like, no, guys, there's a difference between humble and abundant. Right? I think people get those two things confused. They think humble means of a low income earning bracket and not earning much money. No, guys, I've made stacks of money in photography. The humbleness is just to not be a dick to other photographers that are just trying to learn. So I'm glad we got that straight. Let's talk to Kate. Kate is a branding and headshots photographer. I certainly have been mainly a headshots photographer, but I think I've done some branding for people over time. I just haven't called it branding photography. So Kate's going to tell us all about her business as a branding photographer. We'll hear about how she likes to plan her shoots right down to the wire, and I'm more of a shoot instinctively and impulsively as I go kind of photographer. We talk about dealing with difficult clients, people who just don't want to smile. What do you do with those people? How do you help them get out of their shell, break that barrier down? We talk about the reality of style. If you are an up-and-coming photographer, people ask me all the time, how do I find my style? I think your style is something that ends up finding you. Kate's big takeaway when I asked her about what her most recent wins are, she's finally started to post her work, not care about the haters, and her business is all the better for it. If you've ever hesitated to share your photos, this one's for you. Here's Kate. Hello. Welcome, everyone. This is Kate Mitchell, who is here with us. Hi, Kate.
Hey, how you going?
I'm very well. How long have you been a member of Humble Togs Club now, Kate?
Since December.
A couple of months, 3 or 4 months now. And you've been a great member coming along to the chats and the workshops. And sometimes it's just you and me, but that's okay too. Bit of, essentially private coaching. That's all good. I enjoy that. Tell us, just as a bit of an intro to you, who you are as a photographer and what you're up to with your business.
Okay, so I am a headshot and branding photographer. I started really in 2018 and have been obviously working on my skills and trying to improve since then. I think it was 2023, went full-time as a photographer, and just been working mainly corporate headshots.
When you first joined the club, was it that you saw that I was doing headshots and then you jumped in because of that, or you just happened to come across the group?
So I have a friend who has had headshots with you beforehand,
Right.
and I think I was just looking at your website one day and spotted it and
Right.
thought that could be really interesting.
Yeah. Cool.
I've been part of lots of different groups in the past and never got this kind of one-on-one coaching, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's been really good. I think I've mentioned a few times, every time I come on one of your calls, I learn something new.
Well, that's nice. It's nice to know that there's some things rocking around my brain that are worth knowing or sharing.
Everyone's got a different way of doing things, but I really like the way you work.
Great, thanks. This term that you used, branding photographer, is kind of a newish term that wasn't really around when I was doing a lot of headshots in the early 2000s, 2010s. That term, that branding photographer term, is certainly getting thrown around a lot these days. What does that mean to you to be under that banner of being a branding photographer?
For my clients, it's a lot of kind of in situ photos, them at their workplace, or if you're, say, a business coach, maybe doing a conference, it's a lot of showing them doing what they do, basically.
Yeah, presenting them to the world in a way that looks great and professional. And I think a lot of the social media, certainly these days, as certainly found with Humble Togs Club and the way I pitch myself now, that idea of getting to know the person behind the production is certainly a huge part of, I think, marketing in general these days.
Yeah.
So a lot of businesses are finding, I think, that, they need images of themselves that aren't them taking them with a selfie camera, Essentially, I would have potentially done branding photography for people, but I'd call it headshots.
Yeah.
In groups, there's been groups where I've put up photos and people have said, that's not headshots. And I was like,
oh, yeah.
I don't care what you call it. It's a photo of the person for their promotional use. Whether it goes down to the waist or to the feet, I still call it headshots, which I guess nowadays, they get really funny about. You can't call it a headshot if it's not a head and shoulders. And I'm like, we're spending a lot of time not on the things that we should be talking about.
Even we need the branding photos. People want to know who their photographer is before they can come and get their photos.
Absolutely.
Everyone needs it, really.
I've kind of been an actor for a long time as well on the side, and I started off being an actor and then started my photography to support my acting. So I mean to say that I have always had. Hi guys, just to interrupt here, I had a little bit of a sound issue in the recording of this episode. So at this point in the episode, we had to restart the recording, but the microphone had switched to my computer audio recording. So apologies from here on, there's a different style of recording and I don't sound as wholesome and full in the voice as I would with the microphone. But it was such a great episode that I didn't want to have to record it again from here on. As you can hear, the sound will be a little bit different. I hope you can deal with that. Thank you.
I've had actors' headshots of myself. So when I've never had to go and get portraits of myself kind of holding a camera, but I'm seeing a lot of people on social media now are having a lot of photos of like, this is me with my camera.
Guilty.
Right, and that's fine. It's great. I personally, I've always had a bit of a thing about trying to be subtle with any of that stuff. I've had people come into me and they're drummers or they play trombone or pianists or something like that. And, if you've got to have a trombone in the shot, there's only a few ways that you can do it in a subtle way, but generally finding a nice way in the posing of it to have someone be holding their trombone that isn't like, well, this is my trombone, guys. Same with the cameras. If you were taking a photo of you with a camera, I would try to have it in a way that isn't like, here's me with the camera, and just have it in your arms or your hand or whatever. Yeah.
To be fair, I use it to hide my face. So that's the only reason I'm a photographer, is because I hate having my photo taken. Always have since a small child. You will be hard pressed to find too many photos of me.
Right. Yeah.
You'll find more photos nowadays because I know I have to do it. But growing up, there's so few of me.
I think there's something nice about that as we go forward into this zone of showing ourselves to our customers and stuff on the camera. And I think it's nice to be able to show people, hey, here's some photos of me in a photo shoot, so I know what it feels like. And I think a lot of clients come to us and feel really embarrassed or shy about having their photos taken. And at least, you can say to them, I know how it feels, it's awkward and making jokes and things like that. I think on a shoot helps people relax and just feel a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, I feel their pain.
Yeah. Do you have a bit of an origin story? Like what did it take for you to get into photography and what did you do before that?
Okay, my mum bought me a camera when I was really young. I loved it. took really bad photos, obviously, because I was a really small child. But I saved up all my money. All my pocket money was spent on film and developing it. That continued on into high school, where I was always the one taking photos on school trips. Again, no photos of me anywhere.
Yeah.
So lots of photos of friends and stuff. And then I kind of got married and had children really young. Didn't really do much about it. I certainly didn't think I was artistic enough to become a photographer.
What field were you working in for the 20s and 30s? Or you were being a mum?
Well, I was a very young mum. So my eldest is about to turn 31. We had three in very quick succession. Then in 2017, after 23 years together, we split. And I thought, now's the opportunity for me to do what I've always wanted to do, which was be a photographer.
Yeah. Amazing.
Before that, I was working in the kind of profession you would never expect me to work in, which was legal. I did that for a really long time, had a really successful business in the UK. When my ex and I split, it was the perfect timing, really. So
yeah,
here I am.
Yeah, great.
So if you have any single friends of a certain age.
I mean, I know a lot of people around Sydney. I'd have to put my thinking cap on about that one. There are certainly people that are starting to get divorced after being married.
Yeah.
Some newly singles around, but I didn't imagine this would be like a dating agency service.
Not.
Why not?
Diversify.
We can be Humble Togs dating. Yeah.
Humble dating.
I mean, right. I mean, it's attracting the right people, right? When you look at the map of all the members in the club now, there's little gatherings of little groups of people in different areas. And I know Denver has a few people, and we've got a few people in the UK now. Sydney does have a few people now because I speak about Sydney a little bit. But yeah, I'd love to see as we grow with the group that we do have meetups and catch-ups around the world. In 10 years' time, I'd love to be like, great, I'm going to fly around and go see the German contingent and in Frankfurt and go to the Humble Tog Club, whatever, and Arizona, wherever else we are. Was there a turning point for you with photography to figure out that going after the branding clients was your niche and you didn't want to go weddings or anything else like that? Was it a particular point you decided that?
It's probably been in the last couple of years that I've decided that more the corporate side of things is where I see myself. I considered family photography, but when you've got 5 kids of your own, it's like, I don't want to spend any more time around people's children. I'm very selective with that when it comes to family photography. I will do family photography for people that I really like, but I avoid it for the most part.
I think it's good. There's a lot of people in the club, photographers I speak to, where trying to figure out their branding is really difficult because they do families and they do actors. And look, to be honest, we did that back in the day when I had the studio in Sydney. We did a lot of actors, families, weddings, and events. Yeah. And then at a certain point, we actually split up our website so that when you came to the website, there was just 4 icons. One of them was wedding, one of them was family, event, and headshots, and the person would click on that and they would go into essentially a website which was just focused on that person. And I recommend to anyone that's struggling with that to try and figure out a way of doing something like that.
Yeah.
If you're a family photographer and you have an ad on social media saying, hey, come and look at our family photos, and you come to your website and then the first thing you see is like branding photography or actors headshots, you have a couple of seconds there and then they're just going to click away. So if you are figuring out, people say about niching down, it's kind of important. And certainly if you pick something that you like doing and you like doing, working on that and building the brand name around that, I think is a really smart thing. Yeah.
I was never going to be a wedding photographer or anything like that.
Right.
It would be just, I think, mentally exhausting to be nice for that long. Not that I'm not nice, but,
it's a different skill set. It's all of those things, family portraiture. Having said that, I did all those things with the same 3 lenses and 2 cameras. So, a lot of people would say you need a lot of different gear for weddings than you do other things. Yeah, it's a different mindset.
Yeah.
And when you spend a lot of time building your business, if you have to build 4 different types of your business, it becomes, quite a lot. So focusing on one thing, I think, is a great idea. If you're out there and you're doing baby photography or whatever, like focusing on one thing is so much easier than trying to do it all at once. So I think a lot of people at the start think, I'll do anything, but.
And I think in the beginning you feel, how hard can it be taking photos of a newborn or a wedding? But there's so many different aspects of it that you don't consider. It's just a different style.
Yeah, newborn particularly.
Safety with the newborn,
absolutely,
huge one.
Yeah, and we looked at that at one point, and we were like having to buy fabrics and different things to look after them, and it is like a whole lot of stuff to do
Yeah.
just on that one niche. And when you're doing personal branding work, how much do you lean into planning or styling the shoot versus letting the session evolve organically?
I plan everything down to the T.
Mm,
I probably come across as a bit kind of, happy-go-lucky. I am not. I need to have a plan for everything. I overpack everything. If I'm going on holiday, I overpack. If I'm going to do a photo shoot somewhere, I'll take, 2 cameras, spare stands, spare modifiers, anything that you can think of, I'll have spares for it. It's not that I can't cope in a crisis. I just want to be prepared for those crises.
Yeah. I would say personally, and I think my wife would tell you this too, she says to me that I'm excellent in a crisis and I thrive almost on that, like, it's all about to fall apart, but I'm just swiveling and figuring things out. So I would say personally, I don't tend to plan my headshot shoots. If someone rocks up and they've got a bunch of outfits, and I go, okay, yeah, what do we got around? Let's go over here with that. Let's do this. And I like the inspiration to find spontaneousness.
Spontaneity.
That one, spontaneity in that. So I certainly am the opposite in that way. But
I'll plan my poses out, everything. If it's a big brand shoot, I will know what furniture I'm going to use. I'll have researched the person beforehand. I'll have stalked their Instagram, stalked their website. I will know what their inside leg measurement is. It's, I think my previous working life made me very prepared.
A researcher,
yeah, everything. It's not stalking, it's researching.
Researching, yeah. Let's talk about style. There's a lot of photographers that ask me about, like, I want to try and find my style. If you could describe your style right now, what would you say it is?
Oh gosh.
And it's okay to say you haven't got one, because that's, I think a lot of photographers early on are still finding that, and we're all finding that, honestly, all the time.
I would say I've not really thought about it. I guess just clean. I don't like too much fuss. I like to keep things fairly simple. I couldn't imagine using a whole heap of props. So yeah, just clean and simple, really. That would be me.
Right. That's interesting that you said before about how you do like to plan a lot, but it's not like you're planning with like props and other stuff. You're still planning in a simple way, but just thinking ahead a little bit is quite more.
It'll be, we are going to do this first. We're, going to stand up against the wall. Then once we've moved from that, then we're going to go to this chair. It's just, and I'll even time it as well. That's how I plan.
Timing the shoot or timing the looks?
Just, we've got X amount of time
setting
to do
out a timeline.
this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I don't want to miss anything either.
Yeah. That's super important with weddings. I always found that as a photographer, you're almost the MC of the timeline up until the ceremony. The photographer kind of, is the one that people turn to and say, what do we do next? Where do we go next? And that you have to have a good plan for structure. There was one wedding we did, I remember, and we had to stuff up in that. I asked the second shooter to keep the timeline and keep us on timeline. And I went off and did other stuff and came back, and they didn't keep it on track. And then we were like about 20 minutes late to coming back to the bride, and she was furious with me. And I had a real lesson of like, do not make the bride furious at you on a wedding day, right? But I really had to work hard to earn that trust back. And later in the wedding night, she kind of was like apologetic about it. And I said, no, don't be apologetic. It was our fault. Funny enough, on that wedding, that was one wedding where a couple of weeks goes by and you reach out to the client and say, oh, you want to come and see some photos? And she just completely ghosted us for a bit. And I was like, oh my gosh, she hates me because of that thing that I made her angry. Turns out after like 5-6 weeks go by, and like we don't know what was going on, and she got back to us and said, oh, they've actually split up. So yeah. So that was a couple of lessons for me. Hopefully they didn't split up because of what I did.
So did she not want the photos edited after that, or
the photos never saw the light of day?
Wow.
We started processing them, I think, and yeah, I don't even know where they are now. They'd be on the hard drive somewhere, but we never even punched them out. There's a couple of times I've learned that lesson, and if you're a second photographer out there, guys, the responsibility of the second photographer, a really good second should really make the first or the lead photographer's job so much easier. And I've learned a couple of times where I've given them The seconds are a bit of trust or a bit of responsibility. And I've learned that lesson of don't do that because you're the one in charge. You're the one who's supposed to have the control like that. Having said that, after a bit of time, and we had photographers on staff at the studio for many years. So once we did kind of have the trust level built up, then I would be able to trust people to be able to do that. But I think I did that a little bit early in a couple of cases and learned that lesson there. So have you had a really weird or funny request?
No, I think it's becoming quite normal now where people want the whole it's like the 80s weird photo shoot where they're doing weird poses.
Awkward poses, yeah.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the first time that happened, I was like, really? And yeah, I think that's just becoming really normal now and so much fun.
It's so much fun.
Don't think I've ever had anything too weird. I did try boudoir for a while.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of weird phone calls with
Yeah.
that. That's pretty much it for me. I mean, it's all corporate, so
Right. They're pretty
it's-
tame.
Yeah. Don't, and it's like, please, Kate, don't do anything too crazy.
Yeah. The awkward stuff is fun. I've done a couple of those ones for friends. Like
Yeah.
if friends have said to me, can you do an awkward family photo shoot? And you've got to try and put on your lighting hat and be like, how would I like this if I wasn't a good photographer? Let's use just an umbrella from the side, or like just really like light it's bad, and then put them in the awkward poses and really have a bit of fun with it. I've done
I
that a
use
couple of
umbrellas
times.
from the side all the time, Kurt. I don't know what you're talking about.
Like too far to the side. Like if you do it from over here enough, you get the nose shadow. Have you ever had in the corporate world, and I've certainly come across this, have you ever had tension where a client is just, either it usually comes from insecurity, but where they're not cooperating and you've got to try and break that down? How do you do that?
Okay, I've had one where they just wouldn't cooperate at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I did everything. I pulled out all the jokes, jumping up and down, doing stupid stuff. And he just looked at me and went, no.
Yeah.
And I went, I'm sorry. And this was a brand new client. They had, I think it was 25 that day, and he was my first one up.
Right.
And I was just dying inside. And I thought, oh God, this couldn't go any worse. And he refused to smile. And I went, okay, there's nothing I can do. It was just, no, I'm not smiling.
Right.
So I took his photo. It was a very serious photo, and the brief was smiley and approachable.
Yeah.
It wasn't that at all. I spoke to the operations manager afterwards, and I said, I'm so sorry. I couldn't get him to smile at all. He was not having it. I went back, fortunately, a month later to photograph new staff, and he was my first one up again. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. And he came up, he apologized, said he'd had a really bad weekend the previous time, and he was so happy. The photos turned out so well. And I think the moral of the story is sometimes people just aren't going to because they've had a bad time and there's nothing you can do. I took it really personally at the time, thinking I am just rubbish at this. Yeah, it wasn't me, it was him.
Yeah. That's a really interesting one. I would try to say to people when they say, no, I'm not going to smile. I like to use the line. And again, some people, jumping up and down and trying to be funny is never going to work. And you can kind of tell that straight away. I would just kind of, reason as best you can with something like that, even if he's having a bad day. And the thing I would generally say is, well, listen, what I'm going to do today is give you a range of images to choose from. Is that the structure of what they had going on, that the people were going to choose their photos, or the bosses were?
Yeah, no, I don't know who chose it in the end. I send them the unedited images, and I guess they choose them together.
Yeah, usually that's the case. So I always would just say to someone like that, my job is to give you a range to choose from. If you don't like your smile, or if there's any other reason why you don't want to smile, you don't have to choose that image, and it will go on the cutting room floor and no one will ever see it.
Yeah.
But how about we do just as best we can to come up with the options? I have a wonky tooth, right? You have a lovely smile. I have a wonky tooth. So I was often to say to a guy like that, your smile can't be as bad as mine. I've got a wonky tooth. Like, we've all got crap, things we don't like to each other. Let's just do some smiles, and we'll do some different ones. And when you go to choose, give them the power. You have the ability to not choose the smiles if you don't want to. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And like I said, if he's having a bad day and doesn't want to smile because he's having a bad day, that's a different thing. And maybe that guy wouldn't have gotten there. But I always like to say that for people. Same with kids with braces, will kind of not want to smile, and that's exactly the same line I use for them. I say, well, listen, number one is that if for casting, talking about actors, I say, look, if you do all your photos with your lips closed, the casting agency are going to look at them and think, what's wrong with her teeth?
Yeah.
And they're going to think worse things than what are actually wrong, which is just that you got braces on. So
Yeah.
number one, you need to have at least something with your teeth. And number two, again, let's do some with and some without. And when you go to choose, you can pick out anything that you like and anything that you don't like. No one will see. But let's just do all the options.
I get the whole thing with smiling. I didn't smile with my mouth open until I was 30 because I had these two little tiny peg teeth. And then I saw a dentist over here and he just put some kind of thing over the top of them. And I've been smiling ever since. It's
right.
Everyone has something that bothers them.
Yeah.
You just got to get over it.
People often will say that the first thing, especially in some of those corporate ones where they're just going to come to you for like 2 or 3 minutes each. And when you say, hi, my name's Kurt, whatever it is, they'll immediately apologize to you for something that's wrong with their head. They'll be like, hi, I'm Dave. I've got one eye smaller than the other. I just want to let you know, just so you're not disgusted by me, something like that. And I always laugh. I do enjoy when people say, this is my good side. And Erin, who's actually in the club, when I photographed her recently, was really fighting me on this a little bit and saying, no, I want all my photos from this side. And I usually say, my favorite thing about being a photographer is being able to give someone who starts a conversation or starts a shoot by saying that to me. And my favorite thing to do is to give them photos from the other side and go, see, it's actually, And people have like reasons as the nose turns this way or whatever. They've got their own reasons of why. Whatever. Eyebrow goes up, whatever it is.
A little bump on their nose, that kind of thing. Yeah.
But I do like to try and break that down if I can in a supportive way.
Without saying it will make your bump on that side look better if you turn that. Yeah.
Yeah. Another little story I'll tell for a second too. Back in my very, very, very early days, I was doing like boudoir and stuff in the Gladness studio. And I did say to someone who was already feeling self-conscious, she was Greek feeling and had big curly hair. And I was trying to cheer her up. And I was like, oh my gosh, you look fabulous. Like the girl from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And as soon as I said it, I was like, you freaking idiot. And literally she looked at me and literally started crying just because I'd used the word fat. And I was like, oh, you idiot, like so bad. Like that was a bad one for me where I'm always trying to like make people feel comfortable and break it down. But I was like, that was one of my worst ever times when I really put my foot in it.
I am known for putting my foot in it. And I think that's probably why I do these shorter sessions. It's because it's less opportunity for me to say something really inappropriate. I don't know how it comes out of my mouth. It just does. So, let's limit this to a certain length so that I can restrain myself for long enough.
I mean, I've told a couple of embarrassing stories so far, and that's good. I like in Humble Togs Club, I like the idea that I'm there saying, hey guys, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm awesome, whatever. But I also like to make sure everyone knows I stuff up all the time. And do you have a personal growth moment, either in photography or life, recently that has really, could you leap forward in your progression as a person or a human or a photographer?
I think that we had a coffee catch up at the beginning of January. And I said during that I was going to start posting on social media. It's always been an issue for me sharing my work, always worrying whether it's quite good enough, worrying that everyone's going to criticize me for it. And the fact that I just don't like social media in general, but I realized that I've got to get it out there. So my personal growth moment was about 2 weeks ago. And I thought, it's enough of this procrastinating, get it done. And I have been posting for the last couple of weeks. I think I did it for 2 weeks straight, and now I've decided I'm just going to do it weekdays. But the fact that I've gotten over that insecurity has been huge for me.
Yeah, great.
That fear of putting your work out there. And I think especially putting it out there for other photographers to see, because, a lot of clients will look at your work and not realize if you've gotten something slightly wrong. But other photographers will spot it. Your modifier wasn't big enough, or your light source or other.
Yeah, that's exactly why we started the club, wasn't it? That's exactly the reason, because I know if there's more people just like you who are out there in the world who are not wanting to post on social media to get clients because they're worried that other photographers are going to jump on them, bite them down. Like, that's a big, big problem.
Yeah. And there are so many groups out there where people are absolutely brutal about other people's photos.
Yeah.
And it's just mean. It has held me back. It's held me back from growing my business.
Mhm.
The growth that I'm seeing in the last couple of weeks it's not huge, but it's going to get exponentially bigger. So it's nice to post your photos and have people say, "That's so beautiful." It's like, great,
Right.
stroke my ego.
Right. I had someone comment on, I put up some ads where I say things like, looking for a photo group based on kindness rather than snark or whatever. And one person was jumped on there the other day and made a comment like, there's not much good in just mindless compliments, and whatever. It's not about just being complimentary all the time, because I tell you guys what I think would make photos better all the time.
Absolutely.
It's not that there's no criticism. It's just that you can do criticism in a way that's, I think the main thing with that kind of stuff is that when you put up a photo, no one knows who you are or where you've come from or what your intention is or who your clients are. So people from completely different walks of life, someone would jump on a photo that you've taken of a corporate someone and be like, that's not a good portrait because it's got nothing in the background. Like, it's just everyone has their own opinions on all their own stuff, and it's completely irrelevant to your growth. Because I know you now, and when you post photos, I can see what you're trying to do. Try this next time to get further on the line of what you're trying to do.
And that's the point. It's constructive. You're not breaking people down. You're building them up. You're encouraging them to look at things a different way, but you're doing it nicely. And that's the difference, basically. I just don't understand why people want to break people down.
I think the thing is that when you are a professional, like, there's no professionals that are out there, scrolling on social media to make nasty comments to other photographers.
Aren't there?
I feel, well, this is the thing. There are people that have been doing photography for 40 years, and I've come across some of these people too, older, white guys generally, who've been doing photography for a long time, and they're like, stuck in their ways. And I look at this stuff and I was like, dude, your stuff looks really old-fashioned and lame. But again, I'm not going to go and say that to them because I feel like I need to. But generally, if that type of person is out there that is feeling like they are getting overtaken by people with younger fancy cameras and whatever, I understand it. But it's just, if someone is successful and focused on themselves and building their business, they're not spending time going on social media to comment on other people's stuff to make themselves feel better. It's only people who either have found that their business has gone down the toilet or is getting harder and harder because they're not moving with the times. And I would just say that there's a certain style of photographer that is really focused on the technical. And, that's not technically correct. That one needs a f-stop 0.2 more, or whatever, like all this technical stuff. And, no one cares. There was some people on in the group the other day that were talking about posting photos, and one of the guys was being really technical about the lens and stuff. He was making social media posts as well about lenses and things like that. And I said, honestly, no one cares. No one's going to your photographer because you're saying, I've got this fancy lens. Nothing wrong with playing around with those lenses and all that stuff. But if you're focused on the technical and putting that out there to the world, no one cares.
Yeah.
And some of these older guys who are all, like, oh, that's not technically correct. Oh, they're the ones who want to jump down people's throats because they're not getting the validation that they think they should have because they know the technical stuff. If you have been doing photography for 1 year and you understand what it takes to make someone feel amazing, you can take a photo with one light and a reflector at best, or no lights and just good outdoor lighting, and that person will love their photo.
Yes.
And that person, I would posit, is a better business person than the person that's sitting at home, saying, oh, I've learned my photography for years and I know all my technical stuff, but I can't connect with people.
Yeah, the catch light isn't in the right part of their eye.
Right.
Yeah, but they'll buy your photos because you made them feel good on the day.
Yeah,
so
100%.
That, as you said, it's that connection with people.
Yeah,
that makes it fun.
Yeah, it does. It makes it fun. It makes it connected. And honestly, if you see me shoot, like, I'll barely ever use more than one light. Honestly, I mean, in the studio, I have all this stuff around me, and I'll use one light and reflector most of the time. The thing I'm working with most of the time is having fun with the person. And not frivolous fun, like just keeping them having a great time, working on the shots, working on making them look and feel their best. And
so they feel relaxed.
I think that's way more important than getting the really technical, nitty gritty.
Yeah, I concur.
Lovely. All right, well, let's do one more. Last question of the day. What's one thing you never do on set or on a photo shoot?
Oh, is that one thing that I want to do that I don't do? Or
let's do that. That's even more fun. What's something that you wish you could do on a photo shoot that you never do?
Maybe hit on clients. I don't know.
Oh, well, there we go. Look, I mean, this is a funny thing, right? Because we've come through now the last 10 years or so for men, Me Too movement, and all that stuff, and I've always been very, very. I mean, I've been married for 13 years now, but I've always been very, very aware of my maleness in that position of being a photographer. And again, in the world of photography, there's always a lot of sleazy photographers, but I've always been very, very aware of the position I'm in,
Yeah.
and just never crossing that line personally myself.
I mean, I don't.
But, right. But, I mean, it's interesting from a female point of view because, isn't that funny?
There are times where you get a really good looking client and it's like, I wish I didn't have to be professional. And look, I embarrass myself a lot. I recently asked somebody out on LinkedIn. She said no, but his loss. What can I say?
His loss. His loss.
Yeah. I'm awesome.
You are, Kate, you are. All right, well, look, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for being candid about all that stuff. It's so fun to talk about. It's so embarrassing. I think we both embarrassed ourselves, which is great. I love that.
Welcome to my life.
If you'd like a date with the lovely Kate Mitchell from Kate Mitchell Photography, please send your resume and make sure you go to LinkedIn and you can send your resume to me and I'll be vetting all applicants. I will not be taking any jerks, and if you are not worthy of our Kate, you will not be responded to. If you'd like to join Humble Togs Club, my community for photographers who aren't being jerks to each other, head over to humbletogsclub.com and check out the link in the show notes as well. You can find Kate at katemitchellphotography.com.au, in Sydney, Australia, on Instagram at Kate Mitch Photos and Facebook at Kate Mitchell Photography there as well. Thank you for listening. If you have been enjoying the podcast, please go to the effort of leaving a review. That really helps us get started, even if we are failing our way forward with the sound issues, etc. I am learning more and more each episode. Hopefully I'll get it all down pat very soon. I might even impress myself. Thank you for listening. Stay humble and keep chasing awesome.